afternoon, and welcome to Indie Business Radio for Monday, June 30th, 2008. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and you have arrived at the one place where we empower you to enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way. Today's show is sponsored by Perry Ann Skincare, a unique line of skincare formulations incorporating natural and organic ingredients that capture the essence of the seasons for the benefit of your skin. Learn more at perryanskincare.com. Well, you know, I am all over technology these days because from firsthand experience, I have seen that utilizing technology to the utmost is really what's going to make your business. Doesn't matter what you're selling, product, service, it just doesn't matter. If you are utilizing technology to the best of your ability, learning everything you can about how to incorporate new technologies into your business, you really have to be trying not to be able to make your business successful over consistent use of technology. And this is going to be one show where we're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about podcasting today, and we've got a great guest. His name is T. Morris, and he is the author of Podcasting for Dummies, actually the co-author of Podcasting for Dummies, and he also is a really, really interesting and unique guy. But before we introduce him, I want to introduce you to my guest indie co-host today. Her name is Cora Michael, and she is the owner and founder of Perry Ann Skincare. So while you're visiting the website at www.perryanskincare.com, you can also talk with Cora a little bit here, along with T. Morris, who we're going to get to as well. I hope that you'll join us toll-free. Our number is 800-773-0355. We'd really love to have your comments. Cora, let me ask you a question. Now, you've been a member of the Indie Beauty Network, and you are one of the rarities, an indie who is getting out of their indie business. Tell us a little bit about how that decision came about.
Well, I've sort of, probably like many other Indie Beauty members, I've sort of been leading a double life now for the past 2 years. I'm an art historian by training, and so I work in the museum world during the day, and my other passion next to art is beauty products and skincare. And so I started Perry Ann. The idea came to me a little over 2 years ago, and we got the business off the ground quite recently, actually. In December 2007, we launched. And I've found it actually pretty difficult to juggle these two things, my day job and my business. And I've just sort of come to a juncture, and I've sort of had to reassess everything and realize that I don't think the amount of energy, time, and attention that it really takes to nurture and grow a business, I can't really afford to give anymore, which is a shame, and it is too bad because I love it. But what I'm hoping to do is pass the torch to someone who can. So I am trying to sell my business, which is pretty much in the startup stage, but it would be a great opportunity for someone who wants to run their own small organic skincare business, and all the groundwork has been laid, so they can sort of just take off from a running start. So that's sort of where I am now. But the Indie Beauty Network has been a great resource for me all along. I found a lot of inspiration and helpful information, so I couldn't have done it without you guys, for sure.
Well, thanks certainly for saying that, Cora. And you know, your business, I mean, I go to your website at Perry Ann Skincare, and I see, beautifully designed, nicely photographed products, a very succinct and functional and really unique product line, and so I commend you for that. And one of the things we're going to be talking about today is one of the ways that you or the new owner or any other indie business out there might be able to incorporate technology to really promote a brand that really is unique like yours, using, the seasonal thing, like the products are available on the seasons with ingredients that are seasonal, and that's such a cool thing. And it really is an interesting way to segue into our guest today to talk about podcasting and how it can be used to promote your business no matter what it is that your business is. So we have got a guest today who is an expert on the topic. His name is T. Morris, and he is the co-author of Podcasting for Dummies. And, visiting T. Morris's website at tmorris.com, TEEMORRIS.com, and looking at the About page, I'm looking at the bio because, I'm a show host, so I have to look at the bio and see, give my guests, my readers, my listeners a little bit of background on who the guest is, and I just don't even know where to start. This guy is an author. He's written fiction books. He's a podcaster. He's an actor. He's written at least one nonfiction book, the one that we're talking about today on podcasting. And he's just really, really an interesting guy. So I'm excited to welcome you to the show, T. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. It really is funny. When I take teammorris.com and eventually turn it over into a blog exclusive format, I'm assuming I'm going to have to carry all this bio stuff over because it seems to be a real shock to the system when people go to teammorris.com and the first picture they see of me at Who is T. Morris is me wearing lace, breeches, and I'm wearing ballet slippers, and people are just like, what?
Well, you know, I'm glad you said that though, because what it points out is what's happening today is, you know, nobody's doing one thing, and that's a good thing, and it's okay. And one of the things that we're going to talk about and really tap into your expertise about is the fact that in order to have a business today that's successful and maximizing its potential, you've got to be getting the word out using technology.
Well, yeah, but it really the way I look at it is that everything goes back to my roots, which was acting, which was theater, and I consider myself very lucky in that I have that experience to draw from, and even with podcasting, a lot of what I've learned, or what I present to people in podcasting, a lot of it's coming from my theater background, and I say the same thing about my writing. It's, you know, theater is just a form of communication, and where I think a lot of businesses fail is they don't know how to communicate with the public. And the one thing that you can't be is you can't be afraid to communicate to the public, and you can't be afraid to be creative when you communicate to the public. I use them as the benchmark for this, but if you really want to know where I feel you can learn a lot of great lessons, look at Apple computers.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to reaching out to the public, they should have been in the crapper years ago, and yet the way they do things at Apple, it goes completely against the grain. But it's not that they're doing anything really radical. They're just going, you know what? Let's try working with the right side as well as the left side of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and the way that's where I think a lot of communication skills reside in is not in the left, but in the right side of the brain. Creative ways of reaching out to people, which is why, for me, podcasting was just a natural fit.
Well,
I didn't know how it was.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I first started doing this, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, when I first started doing this 3 years ago, I honestly didn't think I would still be doing it, and I didn't think I would be doing it as passionately as I am doing it. But no, it's really worked out, and it's a great outlet. But also the potential for business to embrace podcasting and really take advantage of what you can do with it is limitless. But you know, there is an amount of risk involved.
Well, we're definitely going to want to pick your brain about that. But and you know, being that you are, you know, an artist, you are an actor, and that's sort of in your bones, podcasting probably comes a little bit more second nature to you than it does to other people. So before we get into some of the nuts and bolts and technicalities, T, tell us a little bit about exactly what you know, what podcasting is and what kind of mindset a business owner needs to adapt in order to make use of it.
Well, okay. Well, podcasting is the next step in blogging. And so, to really understand podcasting, you gotta have a good grasp of what blogging is.
Mm-hmm.
And it astounds me how many businesses don't know what blogging is. The biggest difference between a static website and a blog website is that when you put up information on the web in just standard HTML, it's static. You know, you put it up there and it's there, and you don't interact with it. It just information is just handed to you. This is Web 1.0. Then we get into blogging, and blogging really was, at least the way I look at it, blogging was the beginning of Web 2.0, The difference between Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 is Web 2.0 is interactive. Now with a blog, two things are going on. One, you now have interaction with your audience. Not only do you have information that is put out there, but now there's a comment section. And audiences can come to your website and they can go on ahead and they can say, well, you need to check out this link if you want to find out more, and they can put in their opinions. They can go on ahead and actively become a part of this blog. That's the one thing that's happening. Second thing that's happening is you don't necessarily have to go to the blog and double-check it and see, oh, is something updated, is something updated, is something updated. In static HTML pages, if something changed, you wouldn't really know about it unless either you were notified or you were visiting the website on a regular, frequent basis, and you were constantly refreshing the pages to see what was happening. Right. Well, now what you do with a blog is you subscribe to the blog, and then the content, whenever it gets updated, is automatically sent to you through your browser. Right. All right, that's blogging. So what's podcasting? Podcasting is the same thing as blogging, only now we're doing it with audio, video, PDFs. It is now even more interactive, and it's also becoming more of an audio-visual medium. Podcasting is the delivery of fresh, new content to you, and you don't even need your browser now. Now you can get this new content, and you can view it on portable media players. You can view it on iTunes. You can view it on media players that are already installed in your computer. And now podcasting has reached a point, and I just finished covering this for the second edition of Podcasting for Dummies, which will be coming out this summer. The amazing bit about it is that now we've taken podcasting to a whole new level with this application that allows you to play podcasts directly through blogs. So now you can actually, if you don't have a portable MP3 player, if you don't have a portable media player, if you don't have an iPod, you don't have to worry about it. You can just send somebody to a blog, like in my case it would be Moravia.net, which is where I'm currently podcasting my novel Moravia, The Chronicles of Rape and Escana. You go there, and there are players built into the blog, and you can listen to it right through the blog.
So
that's podcasting in a nutshell.
Yeah, and that's a big nutshell. We're going to try to break that down a little bit, but let's ask.
It's a walnut. Yes.
That's okay, because all of my listeners know what a blog is, and probably most of them know what a podcast is, because we've done shows on both here before, more blogging than podcasting. But let's step back for a second with that really great overview in mind, and think about someone like Cora. Cora, I featured her in my newsletter this morning. Her business is based on using ingredients that are seasonal, so it's like a seasonal skincare business. And one of and it's sort of borrowed from a restaurant in Berkeley, California, which serves a seasonal menu. So she thought, why not take that idea and translate it into skincare? So what's going through my head is a great podcast for her would be, for example, to interview the chef at the restaurant in Berkeley that was the inspiration for her business, and tell people.
That's one option.
And that's one option. Think of ideas, because for some people they think, well, gosh, I'm making beauty products here. What can I possibly podcast about? So I'm just trying to think, like, off the top of my head. I'm like, people would be interested in that recipe. In that restaurant in California, and at the same time where she's interviewing that person, she could be, sharing the benefits of a seasonal lifestyle, for example, and relating that to her product.
And this is what I do on a freelance basis. Just so I can let people know, if you have clientele that aren't certain where to go or aren't certain where to even begin, they can actually begin at ImagineThatStudios.com. I just relaunched this website. And it's going to be a blog, and it's going to be a weekly blog, and it's going to be a monthly podcast where I talk about this type of thing, creativity in the workplace. And one of the things that when you want to start, and like I said, this is what I do. People hire me to come and either help produce or just flat out produce their podcast. So the question is, well, how would a podcast benefit someone that's in the skincare business? Well, you got to do one of two things. One, you got to be willing to give away something for nothing. And a lot of people have freaked out with me on that. But I'm sitting there going, look.
What do you mean by that? Give away information or give away something else?
Give away information. Give away samples. whatever. Now, a lot of you would be amazed how many people I've talked to that don't want to give away that information, that really believe that their information is solid gold, and they cannot, if they want that, they're going to have to pay for it. And my feelings are, no, that information is being given freely, and it's being given freely to your potential clientele, and they're going to be like, you know what? They're not jerking me around. This isn't just one great big ad for my skincare for my seasonal skincare products. This is valuable information that I can apply to anything. You know what? I'd love to go on ahead and support this business. That's the way people work. I'll give you a good example.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have to take a break, but this kind of goes back to the point we made at the beginning about the mindset that you need to make it successful, right? Just, you've got to get out of the, I can't tell anybody all my quote-unquote secrets, as if there are any anymore. So, okay, so that's good. We're going to come back and talk with T. Morris, co-author of Podcasting for Dummies. A program note really quickly. I want you guys to know that next Monday we are going to have an open mic to talk about our opposition to the FDA Globalization Act of 2008. Get your questions, comments, and everything ready. Visit the blog at indiebusinessblog.com to sign the petition against this act, and we are going to do an entire hour-long show on this act, and we are going to send that to the staffers on Capitol Hill so they know how we feel about this law and how we are not going to let our businesses go down the tubes so Congress can ram a new law that's going to overburden us with paperwork and fees. We're not going to stand for it. This is Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. We're here with T. Morris, co-author of Podcasting for Dummies, and we are also joined by my guest, Indie co-host, Cora Michael of Perry Ann Skincare in New York. Welcome back, everyone. We are really rolling with this show. T, before we took a break, you told us there were two things we needed to really, really embrace before podcasting. Mm-hmm. The first was making sure that we give stuff away, stuff being an example of stuff being information. And what's the second thing, T?
Well, the second thing would be, after you give away the information, then you have to decide, all right, now that I know what the content is going to be, how am I going to produce it? Am I going to invest the right amount of time and effort into? You got to invest the right amount of time and effort for your podcast, mm-hmm. and you got to give it a direction. If you don't have that direction and you don't have the purpose behind the podcast behind you, then you're pretty much a ship without a rudder.
Okay. You really need to be focused and have like a format that goes along with your business. You can't just throw it up there and
exactly. I actually talked a client out of doing a podcast because when I asked them what they wanted to do, they said, we want to do a podcast because it's cool. And I said, okay, there's your first problem. Can't do that. You got to have a reason. Now this is a company that that produced audiobooks, and I said, well, how about this? Take the one audiobook that is not moving, that is not moving. It's just gathering dust. And going ahead and release it one chapter at a time over a period of time. Mm-hmm. And they said to me, you mean 5 chapters, the first 5 chapters? I was like, no, the whole book. The whole book. Well, that was when they got snooty with me. And they said, you don't know what goes into making an audiobook. And I looked at them and I think, okay, which part of first author to podcast a novel from beginning to end did you miss? And I'm not only done that one, I've done it twice. And I'm getting ready to do it a 3rd time, and right now I'm currently doing a remastered version of the one I did in 2005.
Well, that's indicative of what people are afraid of. They're afraid that if they give information away, they won't make any money. That's what the bottom line is, right? And that is a huge misnomer. That is an absolute fallacy. Just ask J.C. Hutchins, who signed a 3-book deal with St. Martin's Press. Ask Scott Sigler, who did the same thing who still does the same thing with his books, and he signed a 3-book deal with Crown Publishing. And right now, and one of the deals that both of these authors have with with their publishers is that they are allowed to podcast their novels, to give them away for free. And these big publishers are saying, you know what, that's a fine idea. But you don't even have to go to the big publishers. Dragon Moon Press, my publisher, Philippa Ballantyne's publisher, soon-to-be Phil Rossi's publisher, soon-to-be Nathan Lowell's publisher, soon-to-be Christiana Ellis's publishers. What do all of us have in common? We've all podcast novels. Well, let's about Cora here. What's like? She's got a skincare business, and
right.
We talked a little bit about the specificity of it. It's seasonal, rotating ingredients and products based off the seasons. Do you have any, just off the top of your head, any ideas for her to have a podcast, and how long would it be?
Well, like I said, this is what I do. People hire me, and they want me to come in and either help produce or just flat out produce their podcast for them. And for Cora, what I would say is, okay, first off, you do skincare. You want to do interviews? That's great. You can do interviews. But if you really want to help promote your products, what you would do is based on how much content you have, we got to have the direction. So the direction for your podcast would be, why not give a skincare tip? Let's just give a skincare tip. It could be a seasonal skincare tip. It could be just a general skincare tip. Mm-hmm. But give generic skincare tips that can be applied with any makeup that's out there or any kind of lotion that you use, whether it's organic or whether it's something off the shelf. Now, someone may be thinking, well, wait a second, but my job is skincare. Why do I want to give them? Why do I want to give away that information for free? Mm-hmm. Because they could just apply that to any product. Well, the difference is that they're going to take this advice and they're going to go, this is really cool. I want to support this business, and they will go out of their way to buy your product. I've seen it happen with my books. Other authors have seen it with their books, and I've seen it with other podcasts that have been produced. That being said, so now that she's got the idea for the show, what's next? Well, first we've got to come up with a format. So let's give it a real snappy title like Under My Skin. Getting Under My Skin. That's what we'll call it. How you doing with that, Cora? You good with that so far?
Hey. Yeah, no, sounds good.
I just want to make sure you were still awake, Cora. Okay, good.
Sure.
Now, yeah, because right now Cora's going, gettingundermyskin.com. Someone get GoDaddy on the phone. So you've got that. Then you got to ask yourself, how long do I want this podcast to be? Some podcasts, if it's a tip podcast like this, they can last as long as 5 minutes. They can even last like 10 minutes. And then when you sit down and you go, okay, how many ideas for shows can I just pull out of the top of my head? That when you look at the different list of ideas you have for topics covered on your podcast, you can then step back and go, okay, with this amount, I could probably do a weekly podcast, or I could do a fortnightly podcast, or I could do a monthly podcast. So come up with a schedule for yourself. And then once you have 5 shows ready to go, then start promoting the podcast and launch it.
So now this is really interesting because what you've done, and thank you very much, is you have really narrowed it down to its lowest common denominator. Give something away, have a focus, pick a time frame, and just kind of, we haven't even gotten to the technical end of it yet, actually how to do it. But anybody listening to this show right now can at least do those three things to get a podcast, to get moving in the direction of having a podcast. Thank you very much, T. Okay. So,
hey, my pleasure.
No, but I just want to emphasize that because so many times people think, oh, gosh, it's another technological thing I have to add to my repertoire. Will it ever end? I'm just trying to sell soap here. But what you're saying is that it's not that difficult. When you're living and breathing soap every day of your life all the time, then podcast topics come into your head every hour, every minute of every hour almost, because what you're doing is, if you're living your passion, then if you can just get a focus, which hopefully wouldn't be too hard to do, right, T? Because if you have a business, it should have a focus already.
Yeah, but the thing that you want to avoid doing, and this is where I've seen a lot of podcasts fall short. Mm-hmm. The first one is they just do it because they think it's cool. That's the worst reason to do a podcast.
So what's the best reason to do a podcast?
You have a message. You've got a message to get out to the public. Let me give you a good example and a bad example. Let me get the bad out first.
Let me quickly. Because every business has a message. I mean, there is. If you have a business, you absolutely have a message. Am I right? Or maybe you have a business that's not going to succeed, but it's going to succeed. You got to have a message.
You got to have a message, true, but you also have to have a focus for that message. For example, I can't remember the studio that produces it right off the top of my head. I want to say it's New Line Cinema. Mm-hmm. But New Line Cinema was doing a remake of House of Wax. Paris Hilton was in this remake of House of Wax. So they came up with an idea, let's promote the movie by doing the Paris Hilton podcast. And they had Paris Hilton host a podcast for 1 month. I listened to 2 of the 6 episodes that were produced, and that was 10 minutes of my life I am never getting back. This was the worst podcast I could say unequivocally has ever graced the potosphere because it had no direction, message, nothing. They just, New Line threw this together, said, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, let's do a podcast to promote the film. And I think the podcast lasted longer than the film did in the theaters. That's an example of a podcast without a direction, without a message, without content, versus the International Spy Museum and the Spycast. What they do is they have every month they have interviews with people from the intelligence community, and at the beginning and at the end of every episode, they talk about, if you want to find out more, come and visit us at the International Spy Museum. They're not shoving down their people's throats, come to the Spy Museum, come to the Spy Museum. They actually host this really tight, very, very intellectual, very sharp show called the Spycast. They've talked to former KGB agents. They've talked to people who caught Robert Hansen. They've done movie reviews. But what they're doing is they're giving this wonderful content away for free. And I've talked to Peter Ernst, who's he's the executive director of the Spy Museum. He has said we've seen a spike in our numbers, and a lot of people have said they found us through the International Spy Museum. But their message is this is the intelligence community, and this is what we do in there. That's what I mean by having a strong focus and a good message. And if you have a good message, you can go on ahead and pretty much promote anything. But if the message isn't there, you're the Paris Hilton podcast. You're just wandering aimlessly, which is the last thing you want to do in a podcast because people will not listen.
Well, we certainly don't want to be identified with that. So for sure. Okay, so we've got our focus. We have the mindset to give information away, and we have a message with a focus. And so in Cora's case, for example, she's got a computer. What else do you need? A phone? Well, what do you need to do a podcast? And another thing, too, I just want to, let me put this question in first because someone did email me a question. She wants to know, once you have a podcast, how do you create it? So let's go ahead and answer that one for her first, and then we'll get into the actual nuts and bolts of podcasting. How do you promote it once you have it, T?
Well, after you create those 5 episodes, another good idea is to create a promo for yourself, just a quick little 1 to 1.5 minute promo about your podcast. It could be as brief as 30 seconds. It could be as long as 1.5 minutes, and depending on how elaborate you can get, it could go even longer. But you really want to keep your promos between 30 seconds and 1.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then after you create this commercial for yourself, you go to other podcasts that are either following the same mindset as yours, or that are podcasts that you enjoy listening to. You can either buy ad space from them. I mean, I sell ad space on my podcast. And I haven't quit my day job, but you know what? I am making enough money that I can make upgrades to the studio.
And where is your podcast, by the way?
Okay, well, you can reach them if you go to tmorris.com. You can reach them. You can reach most of them through the front page. You can also go to imaginethatstudios.com. Those are my freelance services. And at Imagine That Studios, there is a link to. There's a link on imaginethatstudios.com that's called ITS Audio Video Production. And you go there and you will see all the podcasts that I currently have running. The Podcasting for Dummies podcast, The Survival Guide to Writing Fantasy, Moravia, The Chronicles of Rafe and Ascana, and you can also listen to examples of what's going on.
Okay. I'm sorry, I wanted to just throw that in so people could actually see one, being done.
Bless your heart for helping me pimp myself. Yes, I love it when people help me pimp. But now going back to this, you create an advertisement for yourself, and then you approach other podcasters. On the whole, the podcasting community, if they are not selling ad space, they'll go on ahead and they'll say, well, yeah, I've heard your promo. I'll play it on my show. The podcasting community is just that. It is a very, very strong community and a very supportive community. Right now, for example, one of the offshoots of podcasting is this wonderful social media tool called Twitter. And you might hear some chimes in the background. These are people that are commenting about the interviews they are currently listening to as we are talking, you and me.
What are they saying?
And everybody else.
What are they saying?
Let's see. Well, this one guy, Indiana Jim, just commented the words Paris Hilton and intelligence community do not go together at all. So,
is this a really good, because what you're talking about is, as you say, a dialogue between you and your audience.
But the difference, though, and here's where the businesses have to really take a step back and go, okay, let's ask ourselves, how involved are we going to be in the community? If all you're doing is just, sending out, getting involved in the community by sending out links of check this out, check this out, check this out, eventually people are going to fall by the wayside because they don't want, that's just another form of spam. Versus me as an individual, as a freelancer, as a podcaster, I take an active part in the community. Someone asks a question, like if someone were on Twitter right now and say, does anybody have advice on a really good microphone to start off with? I'd be the first one to ping in and go, start off with the MXL 990. That little bit, giving that little bit to the community, that speaks volumes because you're not just throwing out ads into the community, you're becoming an active participant. And that's really Web 2.0 in a nutshell, is not just interacting with this new media, but becoming an active participant in that and becoming part of this micro community within the great global community. It really is a small world now. It really is.
Really great point. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to pick up on the point that you just made about the microphone, and we're going to ask you some questions about the equipment that people need. And again, just starting out, probably don't need the fancy microphone yet, but just starting out, what do we need to get started with a podcast after we have a focus and a message? This is Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning the new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. I'm here this afternoon with T. Morris. He is the co-author of Podcasting for Dummies and is unloading a boatload of information on us this afternoon about podcasting. I also have my guest indie co-host, Cora Michael, the owner of Perrianne Skincare at PerrianneSkincare.com, a great business concept for a line of skincare that is based on the changing seasons. I just love that. It's so appealing to anybody who's interested in getting their body and their skin more in line with nature. So I commend you, Cora, for having a really cool and unique concept, which is not that easy to do in this day and age when everybody's starting a business. So great job. So T, one of the things you talked about before we took a break was how you share, not just, come to my blog, listen to my podcast or whatever, but you share information. You gave an example of how you share, how you need a great microphone to have a good podcast, and here's the one that I recommend, which is something that people can really bite their teeth into and learn from, and, it's a great takeaway. So along those lines, T, let's talk about somebody who's just being introduced to podcasting today. What are the basic technical tools that someone needs to do their first podcast?
All right. Well, now here's where I'm going to pull Cora into this. Now, Cora, you have a computer, correct?
Yeah.
Do you have and does this computer, is it a laptop or is it just a standard desktop?
It's a laptop.
Laptop. Okay, guess what? That laptop probably has a microphone already built into it.
Yeah, I think it does.
Guess what? You are 2 steps away from starting up a podcast. Okay. You can use the built-in microphone of your laptop, and then you can also go, and then you would go online and go to a website called audacity.sourceforge.net, or you can just do a Google search for Audacity audio editing software, and you'll find audacity.sourceforge.net. This is a free download for a perfectly safe download. This application, Audacity, is an audio recorder. It runs on Windows. It runs on Mac. Heck, it even runs on Linux. So for the super geeks out there, if you really want to run something on Linux, you can do it with Audacity. And I'm going to tick off so many of my friends with that voice. But anyway, so you can run Audacity. That so far you haven't spent a thing. You have not spent a thing. Now are you ready to make the investment?
Yeah.
Are you ready to make the investment?
We're ready.
$5 a month. $5 a month.
So you can say you're ready now, Cora. $5.
$5 a month. $5 a month, and the company is called Libsyn. Libsyn. Liberated Syndication. Libsyn.com. And with Libsyn, with Libsyn.com, what they do is they offer everything. They have the blog built in. They have the interface built in. You upload your shows on there, and then, boom, you do it. You start up your podcast. And it costs you a whopping $5 a month. That's the basics.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
That's the basics. So now the big question is, what about the gear that I've got here? I mean, I'm looking at, I easily have $2,000 to $3,000 worth of equipment surrounding me right now. Now, and that's just the audio equipment. I'm not even getting into the computer. But the question is, do you need this type of equipment? The answer is no. If you wanted your podcast to sound like it wasn't being recorded with the built-in microphone, that it wasn't being, that if you wanted to be able to have the extra bells and whistles to allow for multiple guests in the same room and mixing in voices and things like that, if you want to do something like that, fine, you can go ahead and do that too. But that's going to cost you more money and time in just getting through the learning curve. And then, of course, there's the middle ground. The earlier mentioned author, Philippa Ballantyne, she is New Zealand's first podcasting author, and she invested roughly $300 in her entire podcasting out gear, and that includes a stand, a microphone, and the software. So what did she do? Well, she got what was called a Rode Podcaster, which is a USB microphone, and it is a studio-quality USB microphone. This isn't Logitech $20 jobby. This is a $200 microphone, and it sounds fan-friggin-tastic. The question comes back to you. What kind of podcast do you want to produce, and are you investing the right amount of time and effort for this podcast? If you are investing the right amount of time and effort for this podcast, The built-in microphone, Audacity, and the $5 package at Libsyn may be all you need.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to go, but if you think, you know what, I want this to sound sharp, I want this to sound good enough that NP-friggin-R could contact me and say, carry my show, and they will. And then you can have the studio quality sound. What it really boils down to is, what kind of podcast do you want to produce?
So can people start by just starting with the basics? Because I know sometimes small business owners wearing all the hats get a little overwhelmed with all the different possibilities, which are great and available in your book and also at your website, ImagineThatStudios.com, where you offer services to help people sort of embrace all these new things. But for someone just starting out, so they don't get like, oh, gosh, I'll never do podcasting, they can literally do it with the three things that you mentioned, the Audacity.sourceforge.net,
Audacity.sourceforge.net. Yeah, and really, you don't have to invest in the Uber in the Uber package. You really don't. It again goes back to what kind of podcast do you want to produce? And if you want to start, and I tell people, start simple.
Right.
Start simple.
Yeah.
Go on ahead and do the $5 month plan on Libsyn. Do Audacity and use the built-in mic, and you're fine. If you really want to hear the difference between the three, I mean, I cover this in the Podcasting for Dummies podcast. The first 3 episodes in season 1 is podcasting on a budget, where I use Audacity, I use built-in mic, and I recorded on my Power Mac G4, my PowerBook G4, and then I went on ahead and just put that out there. I put the whole podcast together from beginning to end in 10 minutes. Then there's the second one. The second was podcasting, making the podcasting investment. And that was with a studio mic, that was with a mixer board, that was with an audio card, and it took a little longer to produce. Mm-hmm. Then there was a third way. The third way was using a portable recorder. This could be the H2 Zoom, the H4 Zoom, an iRiver, the Griffin Technologies iTalk Pro connected to an iPod, and just literally, I took this recorder, hung it off my rearview mirror, and I recorded the podcast. And that way you've got 3 different approaches, but we're all doing the same thing in each approach. We're podcasting, but we're podcasting in different ways and means. It really comes down to, but I tell people, start with the basics. If you like it, if you really dig it, then start upgrading your studio. And my first recommendation I'm going to take from a guy named Steve Ely. He was one of the first podcasters to offer a professional market for authors. Instead of upgrading your microphone, upgrade your headphones. You want to be able, and don't get the Bose noise reduction headphones. You don't want noise reduction headphones. You want clear, quality headphones that give you a really wide frequency response. Based on that, you then start building your studio. But start simple. Always, always, always start simple.
Why do you need headphones, T?
Because it's these headphones, it's really good headphones that will tell you what kind of background noise you're competing against. Mm-hmm. And to get into the higher technicality of things, you always want higher signal over your noise. It's the signal to noise ratio. You always want your signal stronger than your noise.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to find out more about the technical aspects of how headphones work, you want to pick up some recommendations. My recommendation is to go out and find, if you can't find it at your bookstore, you can find it on Amazon.com or at ForDummies.com. But we actually had a sequel to Podcasting for Dummies called Expert Podcasting Practices for Dummies. And in that book, I go into how to, what's the best thing to shop for when it comes to headphones. What do you need to look for? I give microphone recommendations, headphone recommendations, and then I talk about upgrading mixer boards. When do you upgrade? That book, Expert Podcasting Practices, are for people who have said, okay, this is fun, but I want to go to the next level.
Right.
First book teaches you how to walk. This one teaches you how to run.
So give me an example of one of your clients, for example, who started out with a business that was doing okay, really just wanted to add a podcast, something simple. They started with, the Lisbon and the SourceForge that you mentioned. They didn't start with all the fancy stuff. Give me an example of somebody that's done well with that and their business is growing, in part as a result of having a podcast.
Well, before I name drop, let me just tell you the client and tell you about them, and then I will give the name of the client.
Certainly don't want you to tell the name if you don't want to.
Oh, no. I'm going to brag about this client. What this client did was they came to a class that I taught, and they were really taken by the idea, and they started working with they took the idea back to their boss. Their boss said, "This sounds really good." So they went on ahead and they started working with audio productions, kept it very simple, and they started getting downloads. And not only did they start getting downloads, they started getting international downloads. And then they said, let's go to the next level. So she came back and hired me to do another class. This was the level 2 class where I started talking about working with Adobe Audition, working with multiple tracks. Mm-hmm. And then she came back for a third class I teach where I talk about video and enhanced podcasting. Mm-hmm. And they continue to build and build and build and build. And to the best of my knowledge, not only did this client of mine really have a great time producing a podcast for these people, it spawned off a second podcast with this company, and on top of that, she is starting to podcast her original film work. But going back to the client was a performing arts company. Have you ever heard of the Kennedy Center? Mm-hmm. That's who it was. It was the Kennedy Center of Washington, D.C. They could not have been nicer people to work with. Absolutely fantastic people.
So
and I've watched their podcast grow. It's been absolutely fantastic.
And they basically just started with the 3 basics that you talked about.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Pretty much. They started with the basics and they went from there.
So you really just have to kind of say, I've got a message here. I want to get it out. And, I mean, one of the ways, quite simply, correct me if I'm wrong, T, that you know that is if your audience or your customers are asking you the same kinds of questions over and over again, then that's an easy way to think about putting the answer into a podcast format, and that way you've answered their question before they even ask.
Yeah, and the important thing is when people hire me to help them out, I mean, I always go, well, where are we starting from? Where are we starting from? I mean, what is the message you want to get out? And if they show even the slightest bit of hesitation in giving out that quote unquote that valuable information that they don't want to give away for free, I tend to be honest, and some people have said that this is sort of my shortcoming, but I basically go, no, I got to be honest with you. If you're not willing to take that leap of faith, if you're not willing to say, yeah, I want to give this away for free and trust that the community will take care of me in return, then you're spinning your wheels.
Well, see, it's interesting that you say that. Does that happen a lot? I'm actually surprised that a small business owner, particularly if they have a website and they maybe even have a blog, that they really are fearful of the connection between business expansion and information sharing.
I've seen it happen from everyone from new authors who want to get their books out into the public eye and really get some attention for themselves, all the way up to big time presentation. I'm trying to think of the best way. Convention organizers who the only thing this one guy wanted to know from me was, how do I make money at this? How do I should charge people for downloads. There are people that charge for downloads. Yes, there are people that do podcasts for pay. They are in the minority. Mm-hmm. They are in the vast minority. And I think the people that really get it are people like, here's a good example, the Discovery Channel. Mm-hmm. The Discovery Channel actually has the Deadliest Podcast, which is their companion podcast to the Deadliest Catch. And it's great. It's fantastic. When I asked Peter Ernest over at the Spy Museum, when I said, why don't you charge people for this podcast? He goes, why should I? This is part of our mission statement. Our mission statement is to promote awareness of the intelligence community, and the best way we do that is through the podcast. And it's bringing people in. This is what I mean by thinking creatively. Right. When you get into business, people don't think, well, I can't give it away. But let's go back in time. What did Bill Gates do? He literally gave away copies of Windows. Mm-hmm. He gave it away. He gave it away to people. And what happened? Now He's Bill Gates, and it's Microsoft. I mean, there are methods to the madness. There really are methods to the madness. And what you have to do as a small business owner, even as a big business owner, when you decide, you know what, I want to get into this market, I want to crack into this podcasting market, you got to ask yourself, what am I bringing to the table? What am I bringing to the table? If it's a commercial, no one's going to listen.
Uh-huh.
If it's original, new content, people will listen.
And that's kind of the news for small business, at least, as businesses grow these days anyway, is that you've got to be original and you do have to be willing to bring something to the party.
And also let's be honest about something else too. You're not reinventing the wheel when you give away information. Everyone knows how to make a wheel. The question is, how is your wheel different from everyone else's?
Right.
When people say I have been also been copped an attitude here and there from people when they want to hire me for a podcast, and then they are stunned at how much work will go into it for what they want, and I go, well, we can play it down, and they go, well, our RT guy says we could just go online and do it ourselves, and we don't need to hire you, and I say, yeah, that's right. You could go on right now. You could go out there right now, and you could create a podcast on yourself. And I'm like, more power to you. But if you want it to sound like my podcast, that's going to cost you.
Right.
And
well it should from someone like you who's been doing it for so long and who's also an author, the author of Podcasting for Dummies.
I wrote the book on it. Yeah. Well, I co-wrote the book. Well, I do it all.
Right. That's a fair mention too. Of course, you co-wrote the book. T, you have just really given us a lot of things to think about here, and I really want to thank you for joining me today and telling everybody about your services and, of course, the book Podcasting for Dummies, which I highly recommend to anyone who's got an online business and is thinking about exploring new ways to expand it within the context of, using the technology that's available. And thank you for sharing also that, the sky's the limit. We can make it big, huge, and fancy, or we can really just start where we are, and that's, of course, where we are always hear about at the Indie Business Radio Show. That is starting where you are and making the most of the resources you have. Thank you, T, for joining us. It's been a great pleasure having you.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you also, my guest indie co-host today, Cora Michael from Perry Ann Skincare at perryanskincare.com. And by the way, T, I want to make sure I mention again your website, imaginethatstudios.com. Lots of resources, and you can also go to tmorris.com if you want to see a picture of T in the breeches. Got to check that out. Click on the About page and get a chance to see that. I want to remind you guys that coming up on July 19th from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock a.m., Indies in the City will be in Columbia, South Carolina at the Panera Bread on 1007 Bower Parkway in Columbia. Joining me will be Leela Barker of Indie Beauty Network member Bella Luce. We're planning a ton of fun, just like last time, our first Indies in the City in the Washington, D.C. area. So if you're in the Columbia, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina area on the weekend of July 19th. That's a Saturday. I hope you'll join us. Also want you to know that next week we've got the FDA Globalization Act of 2008 show. It's an open mic. Join me, express your opposition to this dreadful act that Congress is considering passing, which would hurt all of our businesses and not only that, hurt consumers. I want to invite you to join next week to share your comments, questions, and feedback about that. I'll see you then. In the meantime, enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.